I'm Veronica Dudo. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, drone strike. The Trump administration launches the first known U.S. operation inside Venezuela. What was targeted and what happens next? Moving out, dozens of lawmakers announced they won't seek re-election, why they're leaving Capitol Hill. New hope, nearly 12 years after the disappearance of flight MH370, the search picks up again. Why some are hopeful that the mystery will finally be solved. Plus, childlike spirit.
Here, just walking these streets, you return to being a child. You live the warmth of the birth of Jesus Christ.
We'll take you to the special Italian market known as Christmas Street. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us. Our top story tonight. The United States escalates its conflict with Venezuela. President Donald Trump confirmed anti-drug smuggling strikes are moving toward land. He also issued new threats against Iran following earlier U.S. attacks on that nation's nuclear program. New video shows the American military killing 2 people in a drug boat in the eastern Pacific Ocean.
Every boat that we take out, we save 25,000 lives of Americans.
The Pentagon has launched more than 24 airstrikes and killed over 100 people since it started targeting narco-terrorists in September.
There was a major explosion in the dock area where they load the boats up with drugs. They load the boats up with drugs, so we hit all the boats, and now we hit the area. It's the implementation area. That's where they implement, and that is no longer around.
President Donald Trump wants to put pressure on Venezuela to stop sending deadly drugs to the United States, but Democrats cry foul.
In the briefings I've had, there's never been evidence produced that these Venezuelan small boats moving east in the Pacific, in the Caribbean, are actually carrying drugs to the United States.
And while meeting with the Israeli Prime Minister yesterday, President Trump threatened to carry out more strikes in Iran, too.
I hope they're not trying to build up again, because if they are, we're going to have no choice but very quickly to eradicate that buildup.
Earlier this year, Israel and the U.S. killed over 1,000 Iranians, including military commanders and nuclear scientists. Iran retaliated with a missile barrage that killed more than 24 people in Israel. Iran's president warns his country's response to another attack will be harsh and regrettable. He tells Iranians, "We are in a full-scale war with the U.S., Israel, and Europe." Joining us now is EWTN News contributor Alberto Fernandez. Alberto, it's good to have you back on. So first, we've seen strikes on boats at sea, but this is the first confirmed strike on Venezuelan soil carried out by the U.S. Is this a new phase in the conflict between the two countries?
Well, certainly it is. As you said, it's the first one that we've seen on land. Now, that was forecasted. The president mentioned that. And there's ample precedent in hitting drug processing or drug transport facilities. Certainly, large parts of Venezuela are controlled by drug cartels. There's no doubt about that. And there's an intimate relationship between the Maduro regime and the drug cartels. There's no doubt about that.
In an article published today in the National Catholic Register, you mentioned the Trump administration may be looking for a regime change in Venezuela. If that's the case, why now?
Well, one can say that timing is everything. It was a year ago, it was in late 2024, that the regime in Venezuela stole an election. When it lost and just brazened it out, refused to accept the results of losing the election. Maduro lost. He didn't lose by a little bit. He lost in a landslide, but he just brazened it out. So this isn't an illegitimate government. Now, of course, in 2024, the Trump administration wasn't in power. It only came in, basically late January of this year. So there's not much the U.S. could have done, or this administration could have done, until this year. So maybe it's seen as a kind of a pending issue. This is an illegitimate government. It's stolen election. It's deeply involved in the drug business. And on top of all of that, it's allied to every single one of America's adversaries.
In addition to all of this, you also discuss how some Catholic experts say involvement in Venezuela goes against the idea of a, quote, just war. However, you also write about the reality of Venezuelans and other Latin Americans who are, quote, enduring decades of misery and oppression at the hands of these unjust regimes, these criminal bands in power, condemned to a wretched existence with little hope, disarmed and distraught. Is the United States looking to solve this problem, and should they?
Well, I tried to balance that in the piece because, first of all, I was born in Cuba, so I feel very strongly about this. Growing up in Miami as a Cuban American, yet at the same time, I feel that it's not America's role to solve all the problems of the world, to resolve all the crises and injustices in the world. No nation state can do that, and we certainly can. We certainly have plenty of problems. However, there are sometimes cases, and I've mentioned cases in the article. I mentioned 3 examples of previous administrations that removed regimes by force in the Americas. President Clinton did it, President Bush did it in Panama, and President Reagan did it. And these were all 3 regimes that had lost legitimacy, that had either cheated, stolen elections, or overthrown governments. And so a measured response to kind of restore and give people some hope makes sense. But I agree with you. We have to be very careful about kind of not becoming once again involved in the nation building business, which is interminable, and we can't afford it and we shouldn't do it.
Alberto Fernandez, we have to leave it there. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Tensions continue today in other parts of the world. China's People's Liberation Army is staging more large-scale military drills around Taiwan. In the Far East, Taiwan is showcasing its military readiness to respond to China. This comes on the 2nd day of large-scale drills by the Chinese military, showing its ability to deter any external armed support for the island. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia launched airstrikes on a port in Yemen. It accuses the United Arab Emirates, an ally of sending weapons and military vehicles to separatist forces in the country. The UAE has denied the accusations and rejected claims it was threatening Saudi borders. And in Gaza, Israel says it will suspend the operations of several humanitarian organizations in the region, citing failure to comply with new vetting rules. It accuses some staff members from Doctors Without Borders of cooperating with Hamas and other militant groups. The organization has not yet responded to the allegations. More than 10 years after the disappearance of the Malaysian Airlines flight MH370, it remains one of aviation's biggest mysteries. The Boeing 777 vanished on March 8, 2014, with 239 people on board while en route to Beijing. Despite the most expensive search in history, covering thousands of miles in the Indian Ocean, the main wreckage has never been found. Today, new technology and renewed search proposals offer hope for the families still seeking the truth. This renewed effort, led by the American marine robotics firm Ocean Infinity, operates under a strict no-find, no-fee agreement with the Malaysian government. The mission targets a refined 15,000 square kilometer zone in the southern Indian Ocean. Today we welcome Captain Byron Bailey. He is a former commercial airline pilot with 45 years experience and a former Royal Australian Air Force fighter pilot. It's a pleasure to have you here. First, what specific advancements in underwater robotics and sonar technology make this new search more likely to succeed than previous attempts?
Right. Well, this new search, it actually is kicking off about 1,000 miles to the west of Perth, Australia. There's been tremendous advances in the technology. They have these autonomous underwater vehicles now. There's 3 of them, and they use inertial navigation, and they can operate down to 6,000 meters, and they can search for up to 100 hours on battery power. There's going to be 3 of them. And with the technology they have, they can map the sea bottom. We're very, very confident that this time the Boeing 777 is going to be found.
Given the vast and rugged terrain of the Indian Ocean, what are the primary environmental or geological obstacles that could still hinder the detection of the aircraft's remains?
Yeah, very good question, Veronica. These drones, these master drones, they can basically cruise along the seabed, and they have a height guidance, so they won't collide into any ridges. The terrain varies from up to 6,000 meters up to about 2,000 meters in depth, and they won't be a problem for them, because what they're looking for is first off will be large articles like the engines, for example, of a Boeing 777, which I flew. They're the size of a small bus, so they'll easily be detected if we search in the right area. And this time we're pretty sure we are in the right area now.
You have said in the past there was evidence that MH370 did not crash, but instead was the subject of ditching. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, originally we thought that the captain, and we're pretty sure, based on what the Malaysian Prime Minister said, who told the Australian Prime Minister 4 days after the plane disappeared, that it was a murder-suicide by the captain, which basically the Australian government sat on and didn't say anything for 6 years. But we're pretty sure that, or we thought the guy would have flown as far as possible into the southern Indian Ocean. But now we're based on evidence from aerospace engineer Richard Godfrey, that he basically didn't go as far south, and actually turned a little bit east and sits about 50 miles to the east of the famous 7th satellite arc, so which hasn't been searched yet, and it's just being the search for that area is starting today, and we've got 55 days guaranteed in which I'm sure they're going to find it.
Captain Byron Bailey, thank you so much.
You're most welcome, Veronica.
As 2025 comes to a close, a record number of U.S. lawmakers to date have announced they won't be running for re-election for their current seats in 2026. Many say they are frustrated with the partisanship and blame a toxic atmosphere on Capitol Hill that shows no signs of changing. But veteran Democrat John Larson isn't surprised, saying retirements are not unusual.
Part of it is the political times we're living in. And part of it is just the normal cycles that you go through here in the House of Representatives.
So far, 55 lawmakers in the House and Senate are not seeking their current seats. 44 House members, 25 Republicans, 19 Democrats, 11 U.S. Senators, 7 Republicans, and 4 Democrats. Current members cite a stressful atmosphere.
This can be a very frustrating place. There's no doubt about it. There's a lot of people who come here with their version of what should happen. And, there's 435 of us, so we can't all enact our exact agenda.
If you're a young guy with a spouse and kids at home, I mean, it takes its toll. I've got a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old at the house. I have a 26-year-old that's out of the house, but it's, it takes my wife and I and several babysitters to make the week happen.
But Republicans will only have a 2-seat majority in the House when members return in early January, further complicating House Speaker Mike Johnson's efforts to pass bills. Senator Tommy Tuberville, who is running for governor of Alabama, says security is also a factor for some.
I've had a dozen death threats. I've been swatted twice. Had a car in front of my house several times a couple of weeks ago when only my wife was there. It's concerning.
More retirement announcements from lawmakers are expected in the weeks ahead as they gear up for November's midterm elections. We have a lot more still to come on EWTN News Nightly, Christmas of Hope. It's been 1 year since the fall of Bashar al-Assad. Now life returns for Christians in Syria, and smarter ways to spend and save in the new year. Today, U.S. Central Command announced a big win in the war against terror. CENTCOM, which oversees the U.S. military's Middle East operations, issued a statement saying the agency and its partners across Syria killed at least 7 ISIS members and captured the remainder during 11 missions conducted December 20th through the 29th. The operations also led to the elimination of 4 ISIS weapons caches. This follows the launch of Operation Hawkeye Strike on December 19th. The mission included dozens of fighter aircraft, attack helicopters, and artillery, which destroyed ISIS infrastructure and weapons sites across central Syria. Over the past year, ISIS inspired at least 11 plots or attacks against targets in the United States. While ISIS lost its territorial hold in Syria in 2019, the country was still controlled by the oppressive regime of Bashar al-Assad. After decades of ruling with an iron fist, Assad was overthrown last year. Over the past 12 months, conditions in the country have improved enough to have public Christmas celebrations. Editor-in-chief of Asimina, Rodi Sher, has that story.
In the Syria's capital, Christmas celebration once again moved through public streets, continuing a long-standing tradition, but under conditions that church leaders say feel notably different this year. Preparations for Christmas are taking place across Syria's cities amid a shifting political and social environment. Public celebrations never fully disappeared in the past years, but this season reflects a change in tone, scale, and visibility. This year's celebrations comes nearly 1 year after a major political transition, bringing cautious optimism, particularly among Christian communities. One significant development has been the cancellation of compulsory military service, easing long-standing pressure on families and young people. There has been a relatively wider, though still limited, space of freedom of expression, including religious activity. Economically, Syrians have experienced a slight improvement in living conditions, alongside hope for further recovery should U.S. sanctions be lifted. Against this backdrop, a Christmas carnival set out from the Church of Our Lady of Olive in Damascus, moving through the Old City toward the city center, with participation from clergy, Scout groups, and local residents. Among the participants was Judy Wahba, a young member of the Olive Scout group, playing the drums inside the church. She said she hopes that her music can help restore a sense of peace among the people. For many young Syrians, public participation in Christmas celebrations reflect a cautious return to communal life after years shaped by conflict. Leading the celebrations was Archimandrite Michel Derini, who said church leaders are working in different ways to bring moments of happiness to children and families, helping them overcome the psychological and social effects of years of hardship. Church sources say there has been clearer engagement this year for Christian communities to hold both church-based and public celebrations more openly, with security measures in place. At the same time, challenges remain. There has been a visible increase in religious conservatism in public spaces, continued security instability in some areas, and lasting social damage from years of conflict affecting trust and social cohesion. Christmas in Syria this year is not a declaration of stability. It's a moment of cautious visibility, where faith is practiced openly within a reality that remains complex and uncertain. For EWTN News, this is Rodi Sher.
With the new year right around the corner, many people look for better ways to spend and save their money. I recently had a chance to speak with the CEO of a sustainable investment company about why this may be a good option for the new year. Carol Leibel, Chief Executive Officer of Domini Impact Investments, joins us now. Carol, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Veronica.
So first, let's begin with what is sustainable investing?
Sustainable investing really harnesses the power of finance and directs it not only to make profit and earn money on savings, but to really build the type of future that we want to live in. So if you were to sum it up, you could put it under three umbrellas of people, planet, and profit.
How can sustainable investing be in alignment with one's Catholic and larger Christian values?
Yeah, so those are very aligned. If you think about sustainable investing as seeking to promote fairness, equality, justice, respect for human rights, but also to care for our planet, long-term ecological sustainability, climate change mitigation, and adaptation. These are all very aligned with the Catholic bishop standards, but also the Laudato Si, which spells out, that protection of the planet that we're going to encompass. So a lot is aligned if you think about the work that we do: renewable energy, mass transit, access to banking and finance, bridging the digital divide, fostering a solid, strong relationship with employees and suppliers, serving society's healthcare needs. They're all very aligned with the Catholic values and the Catholic bishops' socially responsible investing guidelines and the work that sustainable investors are seeking to do.
Before we let you go, what are some of the big investment trends of 2026?
Yeah, so I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention AI, data centers to build out, and we know that there are both some challenges that we're facing there, but also some opportunities. So the challenges there really encompass that artificial intelligence requires a vast amount of energy, thus we're seeing more data centers being built. And that is creating some stress on the grid and supply-demand imbalance and disruption. So we're seeing some surging energy prices in certain regions. But the positive that we see coming out of the AI and the data center build-out is that the demand for energy and seeking to balance those out is really helping to spur and promote renewable energy.
Carol Leibel, thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a great day. Appreciate being here.
Up next on EWTN News Nightly, a walk down Christmas Street. We take you to the Italian city, home to handmade nativity scenes. While some are taking down Christmas decorations, one street in Naples is keeping the season alive. A centuries-old craft and tradition that continues today is bringing the story of Christ's birth to life. EWTN Vatican correspondent Valentina Di Donato has more.
Up and down this splashy and colorful road, Christmas shoppers are hustling and bustling. But they're not just looking for any gift.
We're here in the heart of Naples, and we are about to meet Giovanni Giudice, a third-generation artisan who makes nativity scenes. And here on this street, which is known as Christmas Street, artisans are getting ready for Christmas. He's going to give us an inside glimpse of what that means and what that looks like.
The faces here are particular, grotesque even, and sometimes we use them and transform them into our shepherds, turning those faces into our nativity scene characters. Of course, the older people here give us so much inspiration. Those faces have so much history.
Here, the sacred and the profane coexist not just in the streets, but also in the nativity scene.
Naples is a fantastic city, a city full of inspiration, full of culture. The stones here are hundreds of years old. They speak.
Naples is Naples, a local woman in the street says with pride. The city is home to members of the upper, middle, and lower classes. And while they may lead separate lives, they have all one common denominator. They are all muses for the artisans here. Their likenesses become part of those figurines surrounding the baby Jesus in the nativity scene.
Here, just walking these streets, you return to being a child. You live the warmth of the birth of Jesus Christ. The nativity scenes that were made when you were little, we tried to transmit this tradition to our children, even if the youth of today are really focused on innovation, and maybe it's getting a little out of hand. But we have to do everything possible to help them learn these skills too, and honor these things.
Artisans like Giovanni feel the effects of rapid innovation firsthand. It presents the risk that this intrinsically human art might disappear, and this heightens the concern that this phenomenon could deepen the human divide. It is a topic that Pope Leo XIV has spoken of recently.
In our own day, the Church offers to everyone the treasury of her social teaching in response to another industrial revolution and to developments in the field of artificial intelligence that pose new challenges for the defense of human dignity, justice, and labor.
Rerum Novarum was the first major social encyclical addressing poverty, labor, exploitation, and social unrest. And it is fitting that Pope Leo XIV is connected to not only the Holy Father's name, but also to the social issues that the artisans of Naples still grapple with today, more than 130 years later. In Naples, Valentina Di Donato for EWTN News Nightly.
We thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, YouTube, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Veronica Dudo. Good night and God bless.